Hello, I'm Melior Sims. I'm the Holistic Tooth Fairy. I help people heal and prevent tooth decay and gum disease with excuse me, natural, intuitive, and self-help strategies. Pardon me. And I, in my role as the Tooth Fairy, as a natural oral health coach, I talk to a lot of people about their experiences with dentists and having dental work done. And I also, my own personal experience, I had really terrible teeth for all my adult life until about 6 years ago when I discovered natural alternative ways of healing my teeth. And during that time, I had a huge amount of dental work done, some of which was very traumatic, poorly done, and it was all very expensive. So I have developed some theories about what's wrong with the dental profession. Now, obviously, there are good things about dentistry. I wouldn't want to live in a world where we didn't have modern dentistry at all. And individual dentists are good and decent people. Many of my dentists have been absolutely lovely human beings who have done their very best to do a good job and have treated me with respect and so on. However, there is a systemic issue with dentistry. And that's what I want to talk about today, the culture and economics of dentistry and how that affects us as their patients and clients. So if you want to write a comment and let me know what your experience with dentists has been, I'd love to know whether you're a dentist lover or if you're even a dentist watching this, or if you've also had experiences that have left you feeling frightened or manipulated or just really uncomfortable about going to the dentist. So one of the overarching problems with dentistry is that there is a real disconnect in the whole system and philosophy of dentistry between the mouth and what's going on with our teeth and gums and the whole rest of our whole body health. And the basis of what I do with my holistic oral health coaching is integrating or understanding our mouth, our teeth and gums as being integrated with the rest of our body and seeing how what we eat and how we breathe and our emotions, these are all absolutely tied up with the health of our teeth and gums. So most dentists, most mainstream dentists, and even many dentists who call themselves holistic, hello Kat, they just won't acknowledge this connection. It's like there's a cut-off point here, just under our jaw, where there's no connection between what's going on in the rest of our body and what's going on in this part of our body, and no connection between what's going on in our minds and what's going on in our teeth. So that's a real problem. Dentists are trained to basically be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. So they're trained to do surgical repairs and more to use really high-tech approaches to fixing the problems in teeth. They are not, on the whole, taught how to help us, their patients and clients, to prevent those problems starting, other than to say, you know, we shouldn't drink sugary drinks, and we need to brush and floss. Like, that's such a tiny part of the bigger picture of how we can prevent and heal our own teeth. So that disconnect is a major problem in dentistry. If you've got stories, I was just saying before, if you've got stories of your own dental experiences, please feel free to write them in the comments, and I might be able to tie in my what I'm talking about in terms of the systemic problems to your individual experiences. So this culture, this problematic culture of dentistry is taught in the dental schools. It comes from the history of how dentistry became professionalized from being tooth pullers and barbers back in the day. Hello, Sigrid. Yes, I saw you in my inbox today. Um, and so there was no special training for dentists. It was something that wasn't even necessarily done by people who were practicing as doctors or healers. It was really associated with barbers, and their main skill or technique for dealing with problem teeth was to pull them out. So when dentistry began to be professionalized a couple of 100 years ago, those professional bodies had this real kind of power struggle with the medical schools that were professionalizing at that time too. And they staked out their own claim really deliberately. It was actually quite a battle over several decades and at least a generation or two of dentists and doctors to separate out dentistry from medicine in a way that has stuck for the last 150, 200 years. Somehow dentistry ended up with kind of the worst aspects of medical culture, plus their own issues as well. So they've kind of got this God complex, this power over attitude towards their patients that I think a lot of doctors are learning to not have so often in these days, but you still see a little bit, and I've noticed it a lot more with dentists. I feel like dentists are less good as compared to doctors at listening and respecting their patients. So part of that is that history of that power struggle. Part of it is to do with the economics of dentistry. So that separation out from between whole body health and dentistry meant that dentistry got really sidelined in a lot of insurance and in particularly public health funding kind of structures. So where many of us can get access to health insurance or have access to public health for our whole body health, it's much harder and much more rare in most countries to have access to affordable dental insurance, or for adults anyway, to have access to adequate dental care. So that combined with the expense of training as a dentist and buying all the equipment and setting up a dental clinic and running it, the economics of dentistry mean that they do have to charge a lot of money. It's expensive to be a dentist, and but they also kind of exaggerate that. They're trained to do the upsell, and this is something that's really emerged in the last 10 to 15 years. And the dentistry conferences that they go to for professional development, there will be sessions on how to upsell teeth whitening or veneers or orthodontia. So even if you go to the dentist and there's nothing wrong, there's no cavities and your teeth are basically fine, the dentist has been taught how to upsell you some kind of cosmetic procedure that you don't necessarily need, but they can play on your vanity, your desire to fit in, or your insecurities about your appearance in order to sell you these expensive procedures. And another aspect of the economics of dentistry and how it's problematic is that the word holistic, which is such a great SEO term, and there's no requirement that a dentist actually is holistic in any way in order to call themselves holistic or to use that as an SEO term so they show up when you go searching for a local holistic dentist. They've really manipulated that term, and it's really problematic. There's very few truly holistic dentists, And I really encourage you, when you're looking for a holistic dentist, to actually look for a biological dentist, and to try and find or to read deeply into their description of their services. And if they mention fluoride or amalgams, basically you know that they're not really holistic. There's other clues, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that now. Those kind of toxins that have been really commonly used through the history of dentistry, mercury in amalgam fillings, and fluoride, which is so commonly used. It's in almost every filling material now. It's in the rinse water that they give you. Hello, Cindy. To rinse out your mouth after they've worked on you. It's in the sealants that they put on children's teeth. So fluoride and mercury are both neurotoxins. And so when they put those materials in our mouths, it's problematic for our health. But I actually think that working with those toxic materials day in and day out, particularly in practices where they put in or remove without proper procedures amalgam filling, so they're exposed to mercury, they are potentially being compromised in their thinking, their clarity of thinking, and their sanity because of their exposure to mercury. Dentistry has one of the highest suicide rates of any profession, and it seems likely that that has got a lot to do with their exposure to high doses of mercury compared to the general population. And I think that that lack of clarity from the neurotoxin effects of mercury has contributed to the rigidity of the dental profession and their unwillingness to move with the times and become more holistic and patient-centered in many instances, particularly with older dentists. That's just my own theory, but yeah, I mean, as I say, I talk to a lot of people who've had bad times with dentistry. I don't tend to see the people who love their dentists and don't have problems. They don't come to me for help as much. So as patients, when we go to the dental office, I want to really encourage you to be in charge of your own session with a dentist, to open up the conversation and say really clearly right up front, before you sit down in the chair, and definitely before you lie back in the chair, say what your boundaries are, your expectations are, what you do and don't want them to do, and in particular that you don't want them to do anything without you giving your informed consent. So no kind of just sneaking in a little bit of sealant or a tiny little filling here or there just because you're lying back and they've already got all the equipment out and just to get over and done with. Like, make it clear at the beginning that they're not to do anything without you getting to sit up and have a conversation face to face with them. Because when we're lying back in the chair, it's like we're in that posture that mammals take when we lie back, where we're totally vulnerable. Your belly is exposed, your mouth is wide open, you're so vulnerable, and that's a really powerless position in order to kind of negotiate the kind of treatment that you want as their patient. So make sure you have those conversations before you sit down. I think dentists really play on the kind of high-tech mysteries of their profession and use that to kind of keep us from being able to challenge their recommendations. And they also, unfortunately, many dentists will use blame and shame and generally disrespecting to further disempower you as a patient. So if they do find something wrong, they'll say, oh, you haven't been flossing enough, or clearly you've been giving your child Coca-Cola to drink, or you breastfeed too much, or any of those kind of nonsense excuses. Because most of the people I talk to who have lots and lots of teeth and gum problems, they haven't touched Coca-Cola for years. It's got nothing to do with their soft drink consumption. It's a wider holistic issue, but the dentists don't know. They're not taught to understand the holistic influences on teeth, and so they just revert to these kind of simple explanations and blame you for your own problems, which is just so unhelpful. And then, of course, the power dynamic is further made more extreme because of the pain that's intrinsic to a lot of the procedures that they do. So we go in there, we lie back in the submissive posture, and we let them hurt us, and then we pay them huge amounts of money to hurt us. And that's just not a dynamic that is empowering for us. There needs to be a change in the way that dentistry is practiced. And I do see this with some younger dentists who understand this and are willing to kind of have a much more patient-centered practice. But as a culture, it's still being taught in dental schools, this really disempowering approach. And I think part of that, this power dynamic is perpetrated and acted out because dentists actually feel really guilty that they can't adequately help us to prevent tooth decay and gum disease. I think they go into dentistry because they genuinely want to help people, and they're interested in, solving the problems of tooth decay and gum disease, and then they can't, and so they feel really bad about it, and then they just blame you and assume that you're unable to take good care of your mouth yourself, and I think that's a real shame. And I would really love to see the whole culture of dentistry being transformed into a genuinely holistic culture that recognizes the whole body health connections, the importance of emotions and the psychology of the way we practice habits and so on, so that dentists become kind of coaches as well as surgeons, so that they can be find as much reward and satisfaction in supporting people to heal our own teeth as they do from putting in fillings or implants or whatever kind of surgical solutions that are the quick fix solutions that they offer us. So Sigrid says, you have so much clarity around the current dental modus operandi. You're expressing exactly what I thought. Yeah, thank you, Sigrid. Yeah, so I just, I've held back for so long in talking about how I feel about dentistry, because I really want to focus on solutions and being positive. But I also see people just really being disempowered so much, and I want to make it really clear that it's not your fault. When you've got problems in your mouth, it's a problem with the way that dentistry is practiced and taught and the whole culture of mainstream dental advice. It's not a problem with you. It's not a moral failing. It's not it's certainly not your breastfeeding practices, and for most people it's not even that you're drinking too much sugar and so on. I mean, of course some people are, but there are lots of people who take really good care of their health and eat really well and still have problems with their mouth, and that is a bigger issue than anything that can be blamed on an individual. So that's my big rant. I think I've talked for long enough. I'll leave it there. If you've got any questions while you're watching live or afterwards, you can pop them in the comments and I'll come back and answer them later. Thanks for watching, the people who came along. I hope this has been interesting. And remember, you are the boss of your mouth. Bye.